So I would like to ask a question that have you ever encountered a Hijra bus, car or taxi driver? The answer would be no, because I have never encountered a driver who is a transgender. Can one anticipate a situation, a different situation in academic or government sectors if this is the case for private entrepreneurship? So let's begin by examining the first need that must be met to get an employment. So the first important thing is completing an application. And this is a very difficult task, a Herculean task, rather, I would say, for the transgender people, because the gender of the applicant must be specified in a column on the application form for all the government positions in India. However, it is made explicit that the candidate must be either male or female. Therefore, from the outset, it is presumed that no qualified applicant for the position may have a gender preference other than male or female. As per the UGC guidelines, in an application form, there must be a column for the third gender. But it is really disheartening to see that in all the educational institutions, it's not yet implemented. So still there are only two columns. You could see this even in your institutions also. There would be only two columns for male or female. No doubt there are few colleges, few institutions where these things are implemented, but these are really very, very few. The Hijra group is even more despised and mocked because of the same denial of their right to participate in profitable economic activity. Rather, they should also be the part of profitable economy. A person should not be judged on the basis of his or her gender. Rather, it should be based on your competence. So many Hijras, they might be competent, but they don't get the opportunities to perform. The worst aspect of this narrative is that the society condemns them for living this parasitic life and forbids them from joining the mainstream productive sector. Next slide, ma'am. So now let's study the sociological factors. As Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, a renowned activist and transgender activist and a celebrity nowadays, she says, identity with dignity is very important. So it is very important to give dignity to each and everyone. Transgender individuals, they face various sociological factors that impact their lives and experiences. So first is violence and safety concerns. There is high risk of violence. Transgender individuals, they face disproportionately high rates of violence and hate crimes. Police exploitation is a tragic mockery in the lives of hijras, and really this is true. The police personals, they are considered as the protectors of law and they are supposed to protect the common masses. But as far as hijras are concerned, they are exploited, and lot of atrocities that are there on the hijra people. Revati, she is also a renowned transgender activist. She wrote in her autobiography that the cops, that means the police personals, they are indistinguishable from the ruthless thugs. She wrote this incident in her own autobiography, that how she was exploited in the hands of police personals. So physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, these are the common experiences. So the effects are, there is fear of public spaces. So they don't like to go and interact with other people. So there are no social interactions. They feel safe in their own community only, and that is why they make their own groups. So hypervigilance and trauma, because of these traumatic conditions, they always feel a trauma inside, so that contribute to mental health challenges. Next slide, ma'am. The next very important aspect is social rejection and isolation. So many transgender individuals, they are disowned, rejected, or mistreated by their families. So lack of family support can lead to homelessness, particularly among the transgender youth, and this causes trauma in early years. If your family accepts you, then other will also start accepting you. And Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi is a live example of this. She was accepted by her family, and that is why she became a celebrity and she became so successful. So rejection from family or friends that leads to loneliness and abandonment. And then it becomes very difficult for the transgender people to form relationships due to the stigma or misunderstanding of the transgender identities. So there's a lot of societal expectations and pressure, and the need to conform to those societal expectations of masculinity or femininity. As I told you earlier, that society has created these two boxes of male and female, and one need to be fit into these two boxes. So transgender being apart from these boxes, so that is why they are considered marginalized. So the effect is they have to struggle with self-acceptance. They are not able to accept their own self, and there is a lot of emotional distress over failing to meet other people's expectations, even the expectations of their parents, expectations of the society, of the relatives, of the friends. So that is why there is a high rate of drug abuse or self-harming behavior. So this is a kind of escapism or an escape route to erase those kind of bitter memories, because these kind of bitter memories, and they want an escapism. So that is why they get indulged in drug abuse, and they start taking drugs and self-harming behavior. That is, you start harming your own self. Next slide, ma'am. So next, very important is the legal inequalities. So transgender individuals, they may face difficulties updating the legal documents or gaining recognition in laws and policies. There have been major changes in the rights of transgender community, but their fight for transgender marriage and starting a family is not over yet. So they face a lot of difficulty in changing the legal documents, for example, name or gender markers to match their identity. So there has been grave injustice and unequal treatment in the past, which have deprived them of their basic rights. The other fields where this community is neglected are inheritance of property or the adoption of child. Under the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, they can adopt a child after fulfilling the conditions under Section 7 and 8 of the Act after getting the SRS, that means the sex reassignment surgery. Though it appears to be simple, but all that glitters is not gold. For a renowned personality like Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, it is not easy to adopt a child. Then one can imagine the plight of common transgender. She also wanted to adopt a child, but still she is struggling a lot. So the case of marriage of transgenders that went to Supreme Court, and as per the verdict, a trans man can marry a woman or a trans woman and vice versa under the brackets of man and women. So same-sex marriage is not considered legal. Next slide, ma'am. The law does not provide them the same level of protection as the heteronormative individuals. Despite existing legal safeguards like the Nelson ruling and the recent decriminalization of Article 377, it is disheartening to see that the transgender law remains only a document and is neither implemented nor enforced to any significant extent. So there are numerous challenges that persist regarding the societal acceptance and the practical enforcement of these policies. Rather, this community should be a part of our community. The government should own this community as a part of the normal communities. For instance, does inscribing the word sugar on paper make it taste sweet? Only by providing someone with sugar can they experience sweetness. This represents the present circumstances. So social exclusion permeates every aspect of Hijra's existence. The only job options accessible to Hijras are begging, sex work, or dole badai. So prostitution is the only destination for the majority of Hijras. Next slide. So next very important topic is healthcare access. So many hijras, many transgenders, they struggle to access gender affirming healthcare due to the systemic barriers or discriminations. Though doctors, they also come from our society, but there are still so many preconceived notions about the hijras. and because they are not properly dressed, some are begging. So even doctors, they are reluctant to give treatment to transgender, and they are not treated equally like others. They are considered as a kalank on the society. So that is where they're not treated equally. So trans people, they're more vulnerable to AIDS, but they are treated as sinners. So there is limited access to gender affirming healthcare, and this is due to high cost. As we all know that they don't have fixed monthly income or salary, so they cannot afford the high cost of medicines and other healthcare. So there is lack of insurance coverage and geographic inaccessibility. I mean, the qualified doctors and the good hospitals, they're not available everywhere. So SRS, that is the sex reassignment surgery, also referred to as gender confirmation surgery or gender affirming surgery. It is a medical procedure for transgender individuals to align their physical characteristics with their gender identity. It can encompass various surgeries depending upon the individual's needs and goals. So there are MTF, that means male to female, or FTM, that means female to male surgeries, but doctors treat them as guinea pigs for experimentation. So many transgender people, they commit suicide due to the wrong surgeries, and the wrong surgeries are done because these are the quacks who actually they make these kind of wrong surgeries. So sometimes the qualified doctors are not available. So this is the reason. Even Vidya, she's also a transgender activist. She wrote in her autobiography what happened to her during the surgery, and she actually narrates a painful narrative that what happened to her and how she was treated in the hospital. So Global Fund runs a project in our country, and the Indian government provides free medication for AIDS to transgenders, which is available in top government hospitals. But the major problem is lack of awareness. They're not educated, and they have to knock on the doors of hospitals. The government should try to train doctors to be sensitive and treat them with sympathy and dignity without stigma or discrimination.